Welcome back to the Research Talks podcast from Stockbox with Alan Green on what is a slightly more chillier weekend than the last two, Alan. But how are you doing?
Well, I'm very well, thanks, Mark. We had biblical thunderstorms here on the south coast yesterday, and as we speak, I'm all set to go away for the weekend with my son on a mini motorcycling trip to the Cotswolds
Oh,
and
great.
whatever parts of Wales aren't currently locked down. So, but at the moment it's still raining, so I'm not going to depart until the roads are dry. So, yeah, but
Well, that sounds fun. Hopefully, the lockdown doesn't cause you too many problems. Unlike the early start to the markets this week, that was a bit of a sorry sight, wasn't it?
it certainly was. It certainly was. But I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, it is.
When the lockdown comes back in again. Of course, at that point we didn't know what Rishi Sunak was going to propose in regard to an extension to the furlough scheme, and there's still I think some uncertainty about what he has proposed, but something's better than nothing. So, but the one thing is we have to get this country back to work, and I think now it's a case of living with it and working with it and working around it. So, It is what it is. We still have to live our lives.
Of course we do. Yes, absolutely. So today we're going to be discussing two new companies, certainly for me anyway. I've not heard of either of these companies in the past, and the companies are Advanced Energy and Mirriad Advertising. Advertising is not something we've ever discussed, I don't think, on the Research Talks podcast. But as we were saying before we started recording, the technology that these guys have recently brought to market is pretty exciting. So I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about that. But let's start with Advanced Energy, shall we?
Let's start with Advanced Energy, certainly. There is, I have some history here, of course.
Okay.
Advanced Energy early this year evolved from the former Andalas Energy. Andalas had an epic code of ADL, and I'm not going to go into details there. The history is well documented. It was a bulletin board favorite, shall we say, amongst retail investors. And of course, the company didn't deliver. It had an asset in Indonesia and failed to deliver. So, but as we also said, a listed company it's a vehicle for containing assets, and that the company Andalas Energy has now evolved. It's retained its listed status. There's a new board in place, and what is on the face of it a very exciting prospect to build to build a new company. So, in setting their stall out. First of all, I'm just going to provide an overview of what the company is aiming to do. They have set their stall out as an oil and gas investment company. They're aiming to build a strategic portfolio of assets that they don't operate, but that provide stable cash flow and exceptional returns for shareholders and investors. And they're aiming to get the assets in the portfolio to a point where in 4 or 5 years' time we'll have something like 20,000 barrels of oil per day produced by the combined assets, which is that's a good stable company, and clearly it's a laudable strategic target to have. So the company claimed that they have expertise in unlocking hidden value in oil and gas assets with exceptional short to medium term value addition. And really that is based on the quality of the board. So I'm going to go into details on each board member now, and then follow that up with what they've achieved and the steps they've taken to date.
Okay.
So the chief executive is a guy called Leslie Peterkin. He started his career with Shell in the 80s and has subsequently worked for Woodside, Browse Liquid Natural Gas, MOL. The non-exec chairman, Mark Rowlands, is ex-UKR Nafta, that's Ukrainian oil. also worked with Arco. He too is ex-Shell, started his career with Shell, and also worked with BG Group. That's the British Gas Group, of course, before they were integrated in with BP. I think it wasn't it? Or was it Shell? I forget. It was a few years ago. But so anyway, there's a between those two, you have a great deal of history and expertise. The chief finance officer, Stephen West, is ex-Petronor, and he oversaw the merger of Petronor with African Petroleum Corporation. He's also currently a non-executive director at Zeta Petroleum and Tomco Energy. So this is already between those three. We've got 70 to 80 years of experience in the industry. And Ross Warner, who was with the previous entity, who is a lawyer and company director of both private and public resource companies on AIM and also ASX. Looking back at what the company have achieved in the past, Leslie Peterkin in the early 90s identified a project that had been looked at by other companies. They'd evaluated an asset called the Bois Long, I think it's Bois Lang asset in the Gulf of Thailand, it was recommended to Leslie by John Batrick, who is an exploration manager and still runs a company that are working with members of the team, and the asset was looked at by Leslie and his team, and they undertook analysis of the well and realized it was easily capable of 10 million barrels of oil per day. They had a lot of know-how in the structure, in the geology that underlay the well, and were able to assess it and put together an investment case to develop the well, which indeed they did, to the point where Bois Long is still today producing 12 million barrels of oil per day and has recovered already 80 million barrels of oil. So they created this from a 13-year-old discovery, which had been assessed by people with so-called expertise in the oil industry prior to that, who missed this completely. So that in itself is highly encouraging. You've got a team that are able to look at these dormant assets and turn them into something that can produce oil. So this I find highly encouraging. So the company they have a track record of working with established operators where members of management already have a relationship or have worked with the companies in the past, and their approach to earning their fees from the company are very low. They take low contractors rates and predominantly take their holdings in shares, which of course is very good news. So when you hear that a board is engaged and has skin in the game, that to me makes for an attractive investment proposition. And in this case, on September the 23rd, non-exec director Mark Rollins bought 6.5 million shares at 0.19p. I should say currently shares are trading at 0.23p, giving the company a market cap of 3.5 million, and that's of course from a low start. But on September 23rd, a few days ago, Mark Rollins bought 6.5 million shares at 0.19p. Stephen West bought 5 million shares at 0.2p, and Leslie Peterkin bought 5.5 million shares also at 0.2p. So Mark Rollins spent just under 13,000, Stephen West spent 10,000, Leslie Peterkin 11,500. Between them now, Leslie Peterkin owns just under 9% of the company. Mark Rollins owns just under 9% of the company, and Stephen West owns 0.56%. So these are guys with skill in the game, and that so that to me makes for a highly attractive investment proposition. So we then come to the assets the company currently has. In the southern North Sea, prior to prior to the company's rejuvenation as Advanced Energy. Andalas had an interest in the south of the North Sea with Resolute Oil and Gas, and also in Wessex as well with the offshore coulter licenses. And now the company currently owns approximately 62% of 5 blocks in the South North Sea, one of which overlaps the Opal gas field, which is an established field with an indicated 100 billion cubic feet of gas, and also the Badger prospect. And this was a prospect that is highly regarded and has been worked on by the previous Andalas and developed with the existing technology that the company have to conduct an assessment. In Wessex, they have the Resolute offshore fields, the coulter licenses. Corallian, who was the operator of the coulter fields, said that it can't be developed. Resolute also has an onshore license too, of which Advance holds 8%. These are assets that the company is considering its position on going forward in the future. And then, of course, we come back to Indonesia, and we have the Beton Solo project, which was an operating services and option agreement with PT Petroleum Beton Solo. Advance have said that this is a non-core asset, and whilst it is producing oil, it is unlikely to renew the license with the company going forward. And I think that probably highlights or is indicative of the problems that Andalas had in the past with developing Indonesian assets, and that is that the government works at a glacial pace, and it's a lot more difficult to get things done than you might think. I think unless you've got experts on the ground or experts in government that can actually help you push things through. But that's just a personal view, and somebody may well, take a different view on that and shoot me down in flames. But I'm happy to have that argument. So we have these. Those are the assets the company has at present. And in recent statements, the company has said it has a number of options under review, and the options that it has under review, it's spoken to institutional investors, and these options already have attracted multiple potential funding proposals, and all of these are in line with the company's stated objective of building a company that produces 20,000 barrels of oil per day by the middle of this decade. So I think although you can look at Advance right now and say, well, there's nothing actually firm material there. Firstly, you've got a board that's bought chunks of stock in the company a few days ago, and they now own 1/5 of the company overall. Secondly, you look at the track record of the board, particularly with the Bualong asset in the Gulf of Thailand that I covered. I think you've got an exciting proposition here. Some investors may choose to take a stake now and tuck it away, because I think this, we're looking at a company that could suddenly develop, but it's more likely to just build the assets steadily over time. Others may want to wait and see what the board do and the first assets they bring into Advance before they make that investment. But either way, I think you've got an attractive investment proposition here, and you've got a team that there's a very it's worth looking at the website. There's a very good company presentation too that I think helps articulate what the board have achieved, and all of them have worked through 6 oil price cycles since the 1980s, and they all have a very good understanding of how to capitalize on these opportunities. And I think the Bualong Gulf of Thailand project really is a very good example of that. So take a look at the websites. So shares currently at 0.23p, gives it a market cap of 3.5 million. So, worth very little at present. But if this does happen, then I think, and I think the company bring quality projects in that will deliver. Then I think Advance has every potential in the future of being a multi-bagger.
It certainly could be, yes. And I think if maybe people are looking for that lower end of the market, bottom feeding, for for want of a better word. 3 million is is an excellent sort of level to get in at. But like you say, there's perhaps not so much tangible there at the moment. But the board, I mean, they're not going to buy a lot of shares, are they, at these prices if they don't intend to take it further? I say potentially now is a good time for anyone looking for something that is cheap and, maybe tuck them away, see what happens. It's a good opportunity, or watch this space and see what they actually do bring in.
I think that's it, Mark. I think that the board are buying shares at this level, and if you know the guys and you do your research on the board and look at what as I say, the golf on the presentation, there's a good slide that really does explain what happened and what was achieved at the Boalung Gulf of Thailand asset. Explains that very well indeed, and I think that'll give you some idea of the sort of asset they're looking for. And then they're not, that they're not looking to invent something new. They'll be revisiting existing assets that may be lying dormant and have been overlooked by previous operators. And clearly that's that. If there's already some data on an asset that maybe could be interpreted differently and looked at differently, then of course. That it could become a very exciting asset if it's developed in the right way, and if it's and if the team bring their experience to bear. So it's great potential for the future.
Good. Okay. Yeah, and I know a lot of people. There are certain investors who do specifically look for those sort of cheap or low market cap companies, and this certainly looks like one for those kind of people. Well, thank you for that. So the next company is in advertising. It's a new one for the research talks, new sector, and that is Mirriad, or Mirriad Advertising. So what can you tell us about these guys?
Okay, so Mirriad, the EPIC code is MIRI. They've had, if you look at the share price chart, you'll see they've had a pretty stellar year since March. They've come from a low of 5.5p to trade currently at 35.5p,
Oh, right.
giving them a market cap of 73 million, but with good justification, I might add. So it trades on a pretty racy multiple at present, but there's good reason for that. So as we know, the advertising with the global TV advertising market is absolutely enormous. It's worth well over 200 billion and growing. And of course, with advertising now, we've got multiple platforms that people view content through, and that's through laptops, through tablets, through phones, or streaming TV through Netflix and similar channels, Amazon and so on. And the great thing about streaming TV is that, of course, you can tailor content to a specific audience, and as it's streaming, you can adapt what you're trying to sell to that audience in order to hit your target marketplace. So Mirriad Mirriad uses AI, that's artificial intelligence, to analyze content to effectively place content within programming. It's a well-established fact that TV advertising, because you can now hit the skip ad button, most people now record content. So if you're watching a Sky series or you're watching a Netflix series, Netflix of course don't have ads generally speaking now, but you can whiz through the ads and then get to the other side without actually seeing the ads at all. So as a result, advertisers are not getting the returns, they're not getting the exposure. And they're looking for better and more effective ways to do it. So what Mirriad does, quite simply, it will put an advertisement into the content. So as the program is playing, as the people move around in the background. For instance, if you were watching it, Mark, you might see a can of Coke on the counter behind you. If I saw the same program, I might see a can of Pepsi, according to what the advertisers think I would want to see.
Well, and that's like it imposed in the scene as if it was there when it was filmed originally.
It's imposed in the scene. That's exactly it. That's why
Okay.
this technology it's AI. It's incredibly advanced. Myriad are first to market with this, and of course the team have been working on it for several years. But they've had great success in China. So I'm just going to take you through a series, where we're at to date. But if you go to myriad.com, you'll get a very good idea. It's a very good website that will really explain and
Mm.
articulate the opportunity, because there are several video clips and show reels there that take you through the process and show you how it happens. But certainly the research that's been taken to date, 95% of the research groups like the format, say it's a natural fit. It adds authenticity to the program, and the advertisers love it because it's subliminal. It's
Yeah.
viewed, it's seen, it's actually in context in many situations, whereas a lot of ads tend to be, some ads are very clever, but some ads are ridiculous and over the top.
Of
So
course they are. Yeah.
so this is in effect a brand being used in context,
Yeah.
which is key.
It's like product placement, like on steroids.
That's a very good way of putting it, actually. Yeah, it is. So, and as a result, the company has had an awful lot of interest in the industry and an awful lot of press coverage too. So the technology is well established. So
Okay.
the the product has been trialed in many different countries, but of course we had the COVID hits and lockdown at the start of the year, which was when the shares fell to their lowest for several years at 5.5p. But at that point in May, the company then announced it had had the busiest April since its operations in China started. It has a huge contract with Tencent, which are the massive media channel in China, and they have campaigns running now with Enterprise WeChat, China Mobile, TAL Education, and many others, and it's generating good revenues for the company. So the other thing about Myriad is that unlike many technology companies, company CEOs, they're very cautious in forecasting. In forecasting their revenues and
Mm.
financial performance, and they've always achieved them. In fact, they've always slightly overachieved them, but they're doing what they say they will do. And I think this provides a great deal of reassurance to advertisers, or to investors rather, looking at Myriad as an investment proposition. So in May, they announced they had the busiest April since China ops began, and they also appointed a second broker to improve the liquidity. That was Canaccord, to improve the liquidity in the UK market. In May, they also announced they'd appointed a new commercial team in the USA, a new chief technology officer too, and in the UK. They signed an agreement with Channel 4, so there's already content running throughout Channel 4 programming in the UK. Um, Well-established relationships with France TV, and brands such as Condé Nast and Tastemade and Pepsi and T-Mobile, and but it's really in the past 6 to 8 weeks that the stock has really started to take off, and of course now has
Mm.
the market cap in around 75 million. The company announced on interim revenues on September the 10th had increased by 109% to 897,000 despite COVID, and also the company has cash at the bank of 14.5 million. So the cash runway is very strong. It's funded through to the middle end of next year. Importantly, too, the cash consumption during the period had reduced. It was nearly 6 million at the equivalent stage last year, as opposed to 4.5 million this time around. So what they have, they're making last longer, which again is a very attractive. Well, it's certainly very attractive to me from an investment standpoint. Operating losses reduced to 4.9 million, down from 7.2 million previously. Corresponding loss per share of 2p, down from loss of 7p per share previously. Stefan Berenger, the CEO, as I say, very cautious in forecasting, said that he expected the company to continue expanding in the second half, and the company continued to trade in line with expectations. So we're seeing this steady growth in cash, losses reducing, and obviously we're going to get to a stage probably in the next 18 months where the company starts to turn a profit. But what I think is key to the growth, the sharp growth in the share price we've seen in the past 6 weeks, is that supporting the US commercial team. The company is also listed on the OTC market in the US, which gives access, of course, to its key US market. And make no mistake, the US market is the key to this going forward, and attracting key US investors. And of course, as we said on many occasions, with pharmaceutical companies, with technology companies on the technology exchanges like Nasdaq, they're viewed in a completely different way. So investors are buying this and driving the share price higher, which obviously has been mirrored in the UK here on the UK listing for Mirriad. So you're buying this technology. I'd urge anyone before they buy the stock, go to the Mirriad website, take a look at the show reel. It explains everything. The research is all there. The show reels are there, so you can see exactly how this works. And the chances are you've already seen programming content with the ads actually in situ without realizing it. But whether it's actually persuaded you to get up and go and buy that crate of beer that was being advertised, or buy Pepsi instead of Coca-Cola, I don't know. But nonetheless, this is the future of advertising. Make no mistake about it.
No, I agree. I think so, and it's one of those things where you I don't think or this is how I seem to find myself working with advertising, is that I won't see an advert and think, oh, I'm going to go for that. I'm going to buy it. You'll sort of see it and on a regular basis and become aware of it. And then when you're thinking about something or doing something, that will then immediately come to your mind. And you'll go to the website and then potentially go and buy or buy that service, whatever it is you're looking for, because you're aware of it, because it's been there. You've always sort of seen it, so it's always sort of been in the back of your mind. So it's almost like an automatic. Oh, okay, I'm going to look into that now because I want to do X. And this. You're right about skipping ads. I was wondering how advertisers are going to go forward with all that kind of thing, and this is incredible. I mean, from a multimedia professional point of view, this is where my expertise is. That technology there, that's awesome. I mean, there must be so much behind that to track and then superimpose it like it is, and not just once, but like you say, to change it for different people who are watching that particular TV show or whatever, based on their previous advertising history or information that sort of held about them, which is incredible, really, that they can do that. And I think, that sort of targeted advertising, but subliminally, if I can say it correctly, in a TV show. That's awesome. That's great. And you say that in the last 6 weeks, they've just sort of really been picking up some traction.
Well, they have, yeah. I mean, the share price has moved from so we were trading at just below 20p at the start of the month, and then on the news of the OTC listing, the shares leapt up to 35 pence, which of course is where they are now. So gives it a market cap of 73.5 million. But I mean, set against the size of the marketplace, this advertisers want value, and there are other companies. I mean, Bidstack, and I think we'll talk about them again soon. Bidstack have a similar solution for the gaming sector, which again is a huge industry. But I think this is so significant for program makers. I mean, for example, with Netflix, we use Netflix here, and I'm getting reminders through from Netflix. Oh, you watch this, you might like to see this. So it's intelligent use of profiling and understanding your viewers, your viewers market, and the sort of things I like. So this is the next step forward down that road. And I think, and also, the technology is very much in its first iteration too. So as this develops, goodness only knows what the what the potential could be.
But it goes further, I think, than advertising, because in terms of content producers looking for sponsorship, for money to go and produce their content, this opens up a massive world for them, because they can effectively have multiple product placements or within their movies, not just limited to one. Remarkable.
I mean, for example, we've got the new generation Land Rover Defender come out at the moment, which is all over the place. And I just popped out. I just was so intrigued. I went and took one for a test drive. Very, very nice car, but that's an aside. But of course, the new James Bond movie that's coming out now, you can always guarantee a James Bond movie will feature one of the latest cars. And of course, the new Defender features in that. And I think it probably gets smashed to pieces or machine gunned to death. But nonetheless, that's obviously the most obvious one with product placement. But I think the Mirriad solution is very subtle and it offers multiple opportunities to place ads more or less or place content in every scene. And
exactly.
Whilst remaining true to the program. And also in context with the program too. So you then start to associate brands with a lifestyle that you'd like to have.
Exactly.
So in that way, it's a far more powerful solution, I think, than conventional advertising.
Than product I mean, and sometimes product placement can be so obvious as well in the film, and you'd be like, "Oh, I know who sponsored this film," because it's so obvious that it's happening. This method is far better.
It is. It's subtle. It's almost subliminal. I mean, the old TV ads from years ago, where you'd have a commercial break, or you'd be watching a film, and the scene would change, and then all of a sudden you'd have flash detergent flashed up before your eyes, and that would take place within about a quarter of a second. So you'd probably just be aware that you'd seen something, but not what it was. Of course, that's highly illegal, of course. But that was the old way of reaching the market.
Gosh. Yeah, no, I'm a bit young for that. I remember hearing about that when I got a bit older. I don't think I ever got infected by that. Well, listen, that's been really good, Alan. So there's still a lot of value to be had there potentially with Mirriad, I think.
Well, I believe so. I mean, the global ad TV market, 200 billion.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's just the TV ad market, and but this is multi-platform too. This works across every platform. So yeah, okay. So we're at 73 million market cap now, but really the technology this company has, once it's embedded across the major networks, what price then? Huge value.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Well, thank you very much again, Alan, for talking to us about those two companies. A very interesting podcast today, and I wish you a good venture on the bike with your son this weekend. Hopefully you have a good and pleasant weather experience.
Well, thanks very much. I'll report back next week and let you know.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot, Alan.
Thanks, Mark.
See you. Thank you for listening to this Stockbox interview. For more information, interviews and videos, visit our website at stockboxmedia.com or give us a follow on Twitter by searching @StockboxMedia.